Evening all. I thought I'd do a little video to, well, more test out the camera than anything, show you how I make these blades. I've had quite a few people asking questions about them. And also I need to see if this camera's any good for filming the videos and the setup with the tripod and lights, so we'll see what we got on. So they're all made out of 0.75mm styrene sheets or plasticard and whittled out from them. It's just two pieces glued together, if you can see that on the camera. The reason I glue them together is the seam down the middle used for the point of the blade, the edge of the actual blade itself. And then it's just whittled down with them with knives and sanding implements and files and things like that. Start off with, just do a little sketch of the rough shape that you want on a piece of card. I've obviously cut this one down from one of the sheets that I'd already made because we don't need to use all of it. And then all I do then is get the hobby knife and it's just carving the actual shape out. Start by just taking chunks out to get the rough shape as best you can. This is a new blade, just doesn't seem when I cut very much. You can cheat and use the snips. Generally it's just chipping away at it until you get down to roughly the shape of the blade. As I say, you can cheat. Take little bits off at a time, don't go straight for a big cut to get the edge that you want. You're better off just doing it like nipping corners, so take them at angles like that. Nip the corners off. Till you get it back to where you want. Snips aren't the best, can't find my good ones. As I say, don't try and go too close. What you can do is sort of feather it like this. Just nip little kinks into it and then come back in with your knife and just take those teeth out. Just makes it a little bit easier. And then whittle it back with the knife. Quite hard doing it with the camera at this angle and in my face. You get the idea. Then do that until you get the shape of the blade. So there we have it, the rough shape of the blade cut that you want. Once you've got that in, all I then do is go in with bits of sandpaper, these little foam sort of sanding sticks and various files, just to sort of true the edges up a little bit. Rather than using the files to get your straight edges, use a flat piece of sandpaper on the desktop. Reason being, when you sort of put pressure on these foam sticks, it bends where the foam goes in and you don't end up getting a flat edge. So use one of these on the table, just so I get the straight back edges of blades and things like that, and the base where it's going to attach to the handle and any other edges that you've got that are nice and straight. Any curved edges, these different files, this is actually an oval shaped sort of file. These are good for wide curves like that area in there. Just sort of file that down and get the shape that you want. And also you have the little rat's tail small round files and square files and things like that for doing smaller sort of concave areas, little curved areas, like so. Obviously flat files as well are good because they're they don't bend, so you can take them across the straight edges. These are only cheap files, I think they cost me a couple of quid on eBay, nothing special. So once you've got the shape smoothed off and the way you want it, you then go in and put the bevel on the edge, so the actual edge of the blade itself. And for the edge of the blade, one of the reasons I use the 0.75mm thickness rather than 1mm thickness is obviously the thicker the material is, the further back your bevel's got to be to get that nice sort of 45-degree angle on the edge. If you're doing it for like dreadnought weapons and things like that, you can obviously have a bit wider because they're a bit of a chunkier blade, but if you want to keep them nice and thin, let's see, I'll draw a picture here so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So you imagine there's, say, that's your 0.75mm thickness, 2 bits glued together, and let's say that's like 1.5mm. So the difference in thickness. If you want to get a nice 45-degree angle on that blade, you can do it because you're not having to go back as far. Again, if you want a 45-degree angle on the thicker material, you see you're actually losing the thickness at the back of the blade. So on this you wouldn't actually be able to do it on a blade this thin because your bevel would end up right back here. It's okay for axes and things like that because they've got a steeper chopping edge rather than a cutting edge. It's one of the reasons I just use the thinner material. As I say, if I'm doing bigger weapons like dreadnought weapons or axes, you can go a little bit thicker and a bit heavier with the blade. Okay, so how I put the bevel in. All I generally do to start with is take the hobby knife and just take the corner off either side. And that gives me a rough idea of how the bevel's going to go, and slowly make the point go towards that centre line where the two pieces meet together. It's quite cack-handed here with the angle. Once I've got it to where you want it to be, you can then just go with the flat of the blade to neaten it up, and also draw the edge of the bevel back until it starts. I don't know if you can see that on this camera, but it starts to get that angle in that you want. Takes a bit of time, but just keep shaving it back until that point is right down that centre line, and then you just match the bevel on either side. Once you've got it in, it might not be the neatest. That's where you come back in with your files and just neaten it up all the way up. Same with the concave shapes. So the inside of this angle, you just do the exact same thing in there. Take the corner off towards the centre line. It can be a bit of a pain. You sort of get like little grooves where the knife's chipping it out, but you can sort that out with the files afterwards. And then just meet it at the top. Again, just take that corner off and then just neaten it up with the point of your blade. That's pretty much it. Not a great deal to it. If it's just a straight blade, you can actually get your sandpaper and sharpen it as if you were on a whetstone. Just put it at a rough 45-degree angle and just keep checking it to make sure that point is down the centre. Do the same for the other side. Once it's you've got your edge on, you then want to sort of taper the top, and all I do with that is I generally use one of the foam sticks for that. It's the same as you just did with the sandpaper, but sort of keep it at a bit of an angle to try and bring that to a point at the top end of the blade. You may go in and have to repair your edge a little bit on the sandpaper while it's there, but it just neatens it up. Also, before I start thinning the blade down, because if it's a little bit thick and I want it a bit thinner, I also drill with a pin vise into the bottom of the blade, just because generally when I put a handle on it, I'll always try and pin it so it's a bit more sturdier onto the handle. So take your pin vise, you have to be quite accurate with this, place it in the centre, make sure it doesn't split. This obviously isn't glued together too well. As it's only glued together with super glue as well, there's nothing special to glue the actual styrene together. And then just drill yourself a hole in there so that the handle can be pinned on, so it's not going to break on the table or anything. I'll finish that off back in a sec. There it is, finished blade. I want it quite thin at the base, getting broader at the top, but I think I might have gone a little bit too thin. So see it's split there, that'll glue together. Easy as that. Enjoy.